This is the observable universe. This is the Virgo supercluster. Local group, Milky Way. No, not that one. There we go. And we'll skip a few of them here, and it takes us to the Pacific Northwest, which, if you didn't already know, is on Earth. The Pacific Northwest is home to 5 wonderful things: Seattle, SeaTac Airport, Boeing and their 3 airports, and my dear grandmother. What the hey, we'll throw Portland into the mix too. It is also home to 4 glaciary things, which in the midst of all their majesticity, majesticality. Aha! Which in the midst of all their majestic personality trait. No, my conscience is telling me it's majesty. Which in the midst of all their majesty could possibly be a small bit destructive. These are Mount Rainier, Mount St. Helens, Mount Hood, and Mount Adams. Hello, Mount Rainier. Hello, Mount St. Helens. Hello, Mount Hood. Goodbye, Mount Adams. You're not part of the story. Our story begins somewhere within the last 40,000 years when Mount St. Helens was born. When exactly, we don't know. From his birth, his parent, the Cascade Mountain Range, knew he wasn't going to be like any other mountain and contribute to society like most mountains do. He had some anger issues. He wasn't alone, though. 3 other mountains in this range alone had the same sort of issues. These were Mount Rainier, Mount Hood, and we didn't renew that other guy's contract for the second paragraph, so we can't say his name anymore. The symptoms of severe destruction by mountain anger issues sickness disease, or sedibamazid for short, are extreme gain of weight and size over time, and severely destructive tantrums with the use of ash, fire, and sometimes lava on occasion. Then we went to Mount Adams and asked him if he wanted to renew his contract. Hey, Mount Adams, want to renew your contract? I'll take that as a no. Okay. Goodbye. Mount St. Helens did the same sort of thing, but fortunately he didn't do that to us. Can you imagine Mount St. Helens blowing its top? Ah! 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 Hey, why are you running? And why is there a huge storm cloud coming toward us? It's Mount St. Helens. Oh yeah, we were just talking about him. What happened? It blew his top. Ew.
Breaking news. Mount St. Helens, the tornado in Kansas, has erupted, spewing the entire Earth's core out of it and killing 9 billion people.
Okay, so I went home and did some research. Turns out that this anxiety attack has been a long time coming. Back in 1857, a lava dome formed on the north side of the mountain. This was called Goat Rocks. In the 1950s, we began to understand the area's geology, and scientists thought that some emotions maybe, just maybe, were stirring up inside. Studies published in the mid and late 1970s even predicted that the anxiety attack would come before the end of the century. Then, on March 20th, 1980, a magnitude 4.2 earthquake rocked the area. For those of you who don't know the Richter scale, a 4.2 is roughly 63,000 times stronger than a 1.0. About 2 months before the massive outburst of emotion, a baby eruption came to be, spewing ash over a small area. This opened up a small hole, allowing many small bursts of steam and other properties preceding the eruption. A large bulge also formed on the north slope, and by mid-May this was growing at a rate of 5 feet per day. It grew to nearly 500 feet higher than where it was before the activity began. People became sure that an eruption was coming in the final days before. when glaciers on the mountain were literally being turned into boiling streams. On the day of May 18th, 1980, at 7 a.m., Mount St. Helens' friend, the tattle-telling geologist, radioed the Cascade Mountain Range, Mount St. Helens' parent, and the rest of the world data. This told the world of Mount St. Helens' passionate crush on Mount Rainier. Mount Rainier had eloped with Mount Hood a couple decades before, gradually setting off Mount St. Helens. While Mr. and Mrs. Cascades had had it. This was the last straw. So they sent a magnitude 5.1 earthquake to Mount St. Helens' secondary email 1 mile directly below the mountain. This did not have the expected effect. It set off the biggest anxiety attack North America had ever seen. Mount St. Helens received the email at 8:32 a.m. Well, Mount St. Helens had had it. This was the last straw. The earthquake in the email was all it took to set off decades of built-up emotion. The unstable bulge, the one that had been growing for weeks, collapsed and a colossal wave of madness took place, which immediately gave way to a burst of tears. All of a sudden, the magma beneath was exposed, and pressure was released. In less than a second, the mountain dropped 1,300 feet in height. Huge mudslides and pyroclastic flows exploded out of the north side of the mountain, destroying the north face, and over 200 square miles of land. People in Seattle saw a stunning ash cloud plume 79,000 feet into the air, while people to the south and east caught the full fury of the ash. Water from lakes to the north was forced up the hillsides by the ash. Logs still lie in those lakes today, blown over and into the lake by the pyroclastic flow. Geologists were set 5 miles north of the mountain to observe the eruption, as it was originally predicted to be your typical vertical eruption. This it was not. The people at this observatory were killed just after the eruption, along with miles and miles of land to the north. 57 lives were lost in this catastrophe. I hope you have learned your life lesson today, kids. Never let your emotion boil up inside you until you have the largest tantrum in American history. And parents, don't let this happen to your kids. There is just one last life lesson in this. Like and subscribe to be the first notified of other videos like this.